All right, friends, as prefaced at the outset of episode 76, it's a one guest town, and it's a good one. He's a jack of all trades for the Desert Sun newspaper on the beats for a whole bunch of different sports, including boxing, professional hockey, and his real sweet spot. I think I can say that. He might want to correct me, but annually done an excellent job covering the BNP Paribas Open for the Desert Sun. You can read his work at desertsun.com or hell, just go out and buy a newspaper or get a subscription. Welcome, Andrew John, to the Spikes for Speaking podcast. Hello, Andrew. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's an exciting time of year to hop on the podcast.
It is a good time of the year. We got a lot going on in the desert this month ahead in March, although just to harken back for 2023 thus far, I've seen you a lot. I've seen you more than I've ever seen you as we sat next to one another at a
Yeah.
lot of Coachella Valley Firebirds games. You've been doing an excellent job covering the team and the inaugural season for the newspaper. Before we get into the tennis and the upcoming BNP Paribas Open next week, the hockey team, you enjoyed covering it. You're happy. You're enthused with the season to date. Just some broad thoughts from you, man.
Yeah, it's been really a fun stretch here. I guess we're what now 2 months into the Acrisure Arena stretch of for the Firebirds. And I don't know, maybe 20 25 games somewhere around there that we've had there. And it's actually been really great because a lot of times when you have a brand new team, you have a lot of losses. I'll be the first to say as a reporter, sometimes those where you get the best stories out of the losses. But it's also been fun to document a team that has been winning and kind of explaining how that has been the case. Firebirds have played so well. And For that to happen in the first season is really something. So it's been great. But then in addition to that, you have the brand new arena, which is of course, as we both know, that's a real gem out here now. We have this cool venue, and so to be able to simultaneously cover the arena and the team at the same time has really been fun to do.
It is, and it's been made it for kind of a blur of the start to 2023 because
Yeah,
it is a lot. It's all very new. $500 million arena that is new. That just had two nights with the Eagles, and is a couple days away from having Jimmy Buffett in there. So they've
yeah.
had some super fun and quality acts, and they're selling out a lot of shows. And then from the sporting vantage, yeah, the first time full time sporting franchise that we've ever had in the desert. Do you feel like the Desert Sun readership has been enthused, curious, wanting to read a lot about any aspect of the team in particular?
Yeah, I think that one thing that's been really interesting is just to find out, that there are a lot of hockey fans out here. There's just so many people that we hear from through email or through social media who are actual like real hockey fans out here, and that's been kind of a cool revelation. Now, I think we kind of knew that there would be with so many folks who live here seasonally and people who retire here possibly from parts where they have hockey. So the following to see the following has been really kind of cool to see so many of these games really well attended has been something I know that the Firebirds are really excited about, and is something I think that we've really tapped into at the Desert Sun. Is we're finding kind of another aspect of our readership, kind of as you mentioned. We've got these people who are hockey fans that are reading our hockey content, and we didn't even know that that was a demographic out here, right? We didn't know that we had people who would read hockey stuff, and so finding out that that is the case has been really cool. And it just is a good thing for us as reporters because we have all these events. We have the golf tournament, we have the tennis tournament. You mentioned, I cover boxing and we do high school sports and such, but now we find out that there's a lot of people willing to read hockey content, and we're willing to put some resources into that. And it just is a good thing for us to find people who are willing to read the content and that we're tapping into that.
I think what has surprised me most, and then I want to ask you the same question. Maybe your answer is the same. Aside from the success of the team, as we get into March, they still maintain the top winning percentage in the entire American Hockey League. But I like,
Yeah,
Andrew, what I've seen, and we've talked about this at the games, but I like what we see at the games as far as diversity and
yeah,
demographic. Yes, as you pointed out, we knew that there would be a lot of snowbirds from Canada and from Minnesota that are
right.
super into hockey that would come down here with their hockey sweaters on and would buy some season tickets and buy the Firebirds merchandise and get into the games. But I've seen a lot of different types of people. I feel like black people, brown people, white people, date nights, family nights, old people,
Yeah,
young. It's just been a super diverse crowd that is getting over 8,000 fans a game, which is huge for the AHL. But I wasn't necessarily certain that we would see that. So to me, that is what, aside from the success of the team to date, that is what has stood out most for me thus far.
yeah.
I don't know if that's the same for you, or perhaps there's some other aspect of the team or the arena that has jumped out most for you?
Yeah, I think you really hit that. It's seeing so much, we see so many people who are into different sports out here. We see their tennis crowd, our golf crowd, and it seems like hockey, we've seen quite a few people who just are really curious to check out this new thing we have here in the Valley. And so I don't know if they're all diehard hockey fans or what, but it seems like there's a lot of different people checking it out. Really curious, a lot of people just really excited about something new in town, and that's really cool.
Something that is not new, and that's my segue, is the BNP Paribas Open, although they annually do seem to have something new at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, which is one of the most amazing and beautiful sporting venues of any kind. I say that every year. It really is. And I'm not
Yeah,
huge into tennis, you know that, but
yeah,
the venue itself is amazing and it continues to grow and evolve and get more flowers and all that different stuff. You've covered the event for a lot of years, done so at a very, very high level. Interesting year as we head into the 2023 BNP Paribas Open starting next Monday. So it goes March 6th through the 19th. The defending champions, let's start with that. Not necessarily a couple names that jump off the page. Iga Swiatek, yes, she's the number one
mhm,
woman in the world, but going through the list of like past champions, she might not be on that kind of singular type pedestal as we've seen throughout the years. And then, of course, Taylor Fritz, local boy, made good,
mhm.
uh, made some new history. I think we can say in the desert last year. I don't think American had won out here since Andre Agassi. He took down Pete Sampras. That was like 21 years ago. So
Yeah,
coming back into this with a couple of interesting defending champions. Would you agree?
yeah. I think this is like you said, it's a really interesting year because this is kind of like the first year where we have Serena Williams, Roger Federer officially retired. Now, neither of them have really played here in a few years, but um, at some point we knew that some of these icons in the game were going to be leaving, retiring, and the new generation was going to have to really step in, and not just play good tennis, but really be the stars that could draw the crowds and create interest in the sport, right? And I think we saw some of that with these two winners you mentioned coming back here, because now they come to Indian Wells with not just being defending champions here, but they've each won elsewhere, and they've both generated some name recognition. So they come here, and those are some pretty good names. We have a handful of others. One thing I'll drop a little tidbit here that's really interesting is, we had that drought where no American had won the singles title here since 2001 with Agassi. So this was something that was a real issue at the tournament. I think I heard people talk about it for years, where it was like this used to be an American tournament where Americans were winning almost every year, especially in the 90s. And with Agassi and Sampras and Jim Courier and all these other guys, Michael Chang won a few. So you had these great Americans winning here, and then you have this big American tournament where Americans aren't even really reaching the semifinals and the quarterfinals, and that's, I think, really actually kind of hard for the tournament because the fans want to see the Americans do well. And then you had Taylor Fritz broke through, and now what's really cool is coming into Indian Wells, you have now 11 men in the top 50, which is a really noteworthy stat because that's the most in the top 50, most American men in the top 50 since 1995.
Wow. Okay.
So we're really getting into some history here now coming in this year. So it's great that Taylor Fritz won. That's cool for the Americans who care about that. But what's even more exciting about him returning to defend is the fact that there's multiple guys who legitimately have a chance of making the similar run that he made last year.
To your
So
point,
really interesting.
and yeah, and not to interrupt you, man, but
No,
yeah, just to echo what you said. I mean, now the drought is on the ladies' side. The last American woman to win in Indian Wells, Serena Williams, and
right,
now that is 22 years. When she won back in 2001, winning for the second time. Preceding that, I mean, Lindsay Davenport, she went out here a few times, and then, as you said, digging deeper back, there were a lot of American women that had success out
right.
here as well. Um, Repeating, especially on the ladies' side, very, very difficult. I had to go back, I think, to Martina Navratilova in 1990 and 91 to the last women's singles champion. Does that not bode well for Iga Swiatek?
Oh, I mean, that is a wild stat. And I think I would say that um she has a really good chance of repeating just because I mean she's the top ranked player in the women's game. She's only 21, but she's won a few Grand Slams already. So you have to think that she has a good as strong a chance as probably anyone over the last, you know, 20, 30 years of repeating. But then again, I guess we have said that other times where we've said, oh, this player is really playing well and she's the favorite, and then of course it hasn't happened. So yeah, that is an interesting one to follow. I'd say that's to me, she has a more of a chance of repeating, a stronger chance of repeating than Taylor Fritz. As great as a story as that was for Taylor Fritz, who came to Indian Wells as a kid. His dad coaches at College of the Desert. That's a cool story. And he's in the top 10. He's even playing even better entering this year than he was last year. So all those things considered, he still has a very strong chance. But I just think that the men's field feels really strong this year, really wide open. There's a number of players who could win, and I think there's fewer who could win on the women's side. Though, like I said, you never really can tell.
Going back to that men's side, and I guess who or whom Taylor Fritz will or will not be competing against, a lot of question marks in the air.
Yeah,
Both Nadal and Djokovic. Djokovic, of course, is tied with Roger Federer's five-time winner.
yeah,
Rafael Nadal is a three-time winner. Rafael Nadal, they're both on the entry list. He has dealt with what I want to say is a hip injury for the course
hmm,
of several months, and then Djokovic has his non-vaccination issues.
yeah,
Let's start with Djokovic there because the timing is super interesting. As I understand it, to enter the United States as a non-vaccinated person, that mandate concludes, I think, like next month,
yeah,
where you don't need to be vaccinated anymore. So he has
right.
formally applied to have that waived. And look, he's become a controversial figure for a few different reasons. As
Hmm.
far as this one goes, it's something that we basically forgot about COVID in our society. So to kind of read these stories, it feels I don't
Yeah,
want necessarily want to say antiquated because it's still very much there.
sure.
What do you think? I mean, do you think he's going to be able to get a pass on this and come back? Do you think people want him to come back?
Yeah, there's so many layers to this story, right? I mean, we start with people wanting to come back. I think goes without saying, without question that the tournament wants him to come back. He's a big draw, number one player in the men's game. Of course, you want him to come back if you're the tournament. I think fans would love to see him as well. For for a number of different reasons. He's a really exciting player, the top player in the men's game. He has a chance to break a lot of the records at Indian Wells in terms of tournament titles and match wins and things like that. Um, yeah, I'm curious to see if I'm waiting like everyone else to see if he's able to get the exemption. You know, John and Patrick McEnroe were asked about this in a conference call last week with reporters, and as people would imagine, McEnroe was really outspoken about it, saying, "Oh, Djokovic should be able to play. This is ridiculous." Patrick McEnroe is, I think, a little bit more pragmatic. He said, I do believe that he should be able to come in and play. He said, but he was careful to say, whether COVID's over, because we know that there's still a health concern there. But he said the thing is every other country is allowing foreigners to travel into the country. We're the last. So for that reason, I mean, it does feel antiquated, as you mentioned. Not to say that we're past COVID and we shouldn't be taken seriously
And
at
I'm not
all.
saying that either. No.
Yeah, it's more or less just in terms of the travel requirements for other countries, we're not on that same level for some reason. So yeah, so it is an interesting dilemma there. I actually got someone messaged me. I've written about this. I've written a couple stories about this situation, and I had someone message me and say, "Well, if Djokovic really wanted to be here, because coming into the country, apparently you can cross the border driving without being vaccinated
Okay.
if you're a foreigner, but if you can't, you just can't fly in. I guess I don't understand what the difference is there, but um, but I had someone email me and say, hey, if he really wanted to, he could fly to Mexico or Canada, cross the border, and then fly in to Palm Springs from there, from the United States because he's in the country, and then come to Indian Wells if he really wanted to. Yeah, I guess he, in theory, probably could. The question is, would he do that? And I just don't know. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there.
Moving on to Nadal, your sense if he is he is entered. He has been injured. You think he's going to
No.
play?
He's also someone I'm quite skeptical about just because of this hip injury. But I will say this: I had a chance to talk to him one on one last year during the tournament, and the topic was all about golf. I asked him about he loves playing golf here. So as much as he loves playing tennis here, and this is one of his favorite tournaments, I really think he wants to come and play some golf. So it health allowing, I would fully expect to see him here. But then again, it probably just not knowing the severity of that injury, it makes it tough to predict. But I think that he's someone who would do everything in his power to come and play if he's able to, if he feels like he is physically able to.
Friends, you're tuning into episode 76 of the Spicer Speaking podcast. Andrew John with the Desert Sun is my guest. Be sure to follow him, well, all year long, but especially when we get into the BNP Paribas Open, which starts next week, March 6th. You can follow Andrew's work at thedesertsun.com, or it's just Desert Sun. You don't need to put the in
Right.
there, or hell, as I said before, go get a
Sure.
newspaper or a newspaper subscription. One other injury note that I neglected to mention, the bombastic Nick Kyrgios. I probably butchered his name. I think I have
Yeah.
before. The Aussie. He's not going to play. He hasn't
Yeah.
played for a few months, I don't think, and maybe even a
Yep.
little bit longer. He's not going to be out here in Indian Wells next week, correct?
Correct. And I actually think that that does hurt the tournament a little just because he is a draw. He reached the semifinal, either semis or quarters. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, he went really far here last year and put on a good show. He's obviously really passionate. He had an incident where he smashed some rackets, which is no surprise to tennis fans. He smashed some rackets. He had a situation where he in the match that he lost to Nadal, I guess it was the semifinals. He smashed a racket and it bounced, almost hit a ball kid. I don't know if you remember that, but um, kind of always never a dull moment with him, and he is a good player when he's really dialed in. So his absence is unfortunate, but but I do really going back to what I said before. I think the men's field is really strong this year. And I think that there will be some other guys who will step in and create some excitement.
Whether it be the men, the women, the injured, the unvaccinated, come March
Yeah.
19th, Andrew, what's the story that you'd be really jazzed to write at the end of the BNP Paribas Open?
Last year the story really was Taylor Fritz because I knew this. So I'll say that because I did know his history with this tournament, coming here as a kid and his dad coaching at College of the Desert, being a Southern California guy, growing up outside San Diego. We knew that him winning was going to be a big story. And so, as a reporter, you like to see what would be a cool story, come to fruition if it makes sense, if it all happens that way. I like to say, as a reporter, we don't root for the winners of the game. We root for the stories.
Yeah.
Um, we want what we think is a cool story, and that turned out to be a cool story. So I was happy to see that. This year, one thing that I would probably be jazzed about is seeing another American man or woman other than Taylor win. And the reason why is because, as I mentioned earlier, there's been a real drought here for years on the men's, particularly the men's side, but also the women's side in terms of the winners. We're in this 22-year drought now since the last American woman won. That was Serena Williams in 2001. But even a lot of the women haven't even been going very far among the American women. So to see the tide turn would be very cool. It would be a cool story at a huge American tournament. And if you have another American man win, then it's kind of like, okay, we went 21 years without that
Mhm.
happening. Now you got back to back American men, or you get an American woman. That would be a really cool story to cover.
Couple more for you today. Andrew John. Yes, he has two first names. Um, Got to get that one in every
Yeah.
time. I still think it's funny. Uh, there's a lot of peripheral stuff, a lot of stimuli going on every year with the BNP Paribas Open. I did a little ditty story for the Greater Palm Springs CBB and just talking about kind of some of the fan things that are going on. There's, of
No.
course, the City Taste of Tennis. I may see you there. I read something today that for the music that goes on during the tournament, you've got the Bryan Brothers Band again.
No.
Also got John McEnroe and his band is going to
Right.
play there. A couple other things, some new restaurants. I don't know of any of these things for fans listening that really jump out at you that you're excited to see this year off the tennis court.
Every year there's something really cool with the food. That's actually one thing I hear a lot about from people who come to the tournament is it's great. You get some nice weather, you get, this world-class tennis, but the food scene has really been pretty vibrant for people who care about that. They had Wolfgang Puck Spago, right there in Stadium One. They switched that out last year with a local Italian restaurant. And then now it's this chef who's somewhat famous, Jet Tila. He's a Food Network guy. He's based out of LA. He's got his I want to say it's Bistro 88, I think is what it's called. I'm not trying to plug it. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing I'm getting excited about is seeing these new food options come in. There's a few other really cool food options. And so I think for people who aren't even like crazy avid tennis fans, just coming out and taking in the grounds, maybe getting a grounds pass. You can get a grounds pass for like what, $50 or $75 a day, and it won't let you into the stadiums, but you can kind of cruise around, check out all the food and all the other cool things going on. That's actually cool. You can actually see the bands too. You mentioned the Bryan brothers and the McEnroe brother. I guess it's just John McEnroe. It's not the McEnroe brothers, but yeah, you can get that type of stuff with the grounds pass, and so that's some pretty cool stuff to look forward to as well.
I think among that new food, Pink's hot dogs, famous
True.
Pink hot dogs, now going to be sold at the
Yeah.
Indian Wells Tennis Garden. One more
Right.
for you today, my man. Often, the reporter job, you are found behind the scenes.
Mhm.
This year at the BNP Paribas Open, yourself, along with your Desert Sun colleagues, not just going to be seemingly in front of the camera, but actually on the court. I don't think that you're going to be playing, but you
Yeah.
are going to be deservedly recognized, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, our staff will be recognized with the Bud Collins Media Award this year, which of course is given to every year to a different it's usually one person, right? Um, it's been given to people all over the world who've come and traveled to cover this tournament. And we've all won. Larry and Shad and I, we actually just this last week were recognized with two national awards each by the Associated Press Sports Editors,
Attaboy.
which was, yeah, that was pretty cool. And our section was recognized in the print portfolio category and the special section category for our special section on the Firebirds. But I gotta say, this is one of the cooler things. We don't do the job for the recognition like that, but when someone does recognize you and they kind of make a little bit of a big deal out of it, it just is really kind of cool. It kind of makes it feel like all the work we've put in over the years. I mean, the long nights, the countless hours, and all the work that's gone into breaking news and keeping people informed about the tournament. Just is a nice little hat tip to us. And it's really cool to, I was actually kind of surprised that we got when they told us that we had won this year's award. And I guess one thing I told Shad and Larry and some of the other guys is that the cool thing about it for me is that you get recognized with the colleagues that you work with, and you really you see them working hard, and you're glad they're getting recognized as well. That's so much cooler than winning something on your own. So
And that
it's really exciting to get that recognition this year.
that will take place on the Stadium One court, do
Yeah,
we think?
it's March 14th on Stadium Court, and it will be like around 2:30 or 3 o'clock p.m.
Will you do
So
me a favor and carry a racket with you? Just so people are like, wait, what? Why does he have a
yeah,
racket?
yeah,
Yeah, I think you
I'll
should, man.
I'll bring mine.
Racket, no racket, pen, pencil,
Yeah,
typewriter. Dudes, I want you to be sure to follow the BNP Paribas Open at desertsun.com. Award-winning work, deservedly so, from Andrew
yeah.
John and the rest of the Desert Sun team. Always a pleasure to chat, my friend. I'll look forward. Since I probably won't see you at the tennis, I might pop in for one night this year,
Hmm.
but I will decide
Yeah.
to see you for the home stretch of the Coachella Valley Firebirds inaugural season. Appreciate your time,
Yeah.
Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Judd. Yeah, it was
Thank
great
you.
to spend some time with you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for your time.